All right, two kind of general themes I want to touch on in this video are things related to social emotional development and moral development. So when we look at social emotional learning and development, this is overall a child's ability to kind of properly manage themselves. All right, so how well do they do at recognizing and also controlling their emotions? How well are they at disciplining themselves when it comes to needing to focus and accomplish something? Can they like set goals for themselves? And then like the social aspect as well. How well do they interact with their peers, right? Are there any conflicts there, or are they great when working in a group? Are they supportive and helpful? Things along those lines. And then from the moral development side of things, like where are their sense of values and ethics, right? Their sense of right and wrong. Where are they at? What are the influences on it? And how is that being developed and changed? What we're going to see is that the role of a teacher is vital in the development of all these areas, primarily because the role of a teacher is that of a role model, right? This is someone who sets an example whether they like it or not, right? This is somebody that children and students are going to look to and take cues from as far as what's appropriate and what is the best way to handle situations and other people. So what we find is that one of the best ways to promote effective, beneficial, healthy, social, emotional, and moral development in our students is to be a good example of all those qualities and values yourself. Right? It starts with you setting that kind of tone. Now, granted, they're going to get a lot of this from home as well, for better or for worse. We can't necessarily control that aspect, but we want to look at what are the things that are within our control. And part of that is definitely ourselves and how we approach the situation. So how can we set a good example for all those things? How can we show them this is how we can speak nicely to each other, or proper communication with our peers and others? These are the ways in which we can recognize our emotions and maybe work towards having better control of them or expressing them in a more healthy way. Or this is how we can kind of look at our own motivation and how we can boost that. Part of this too, though, is what we're seeing is that many schools today have social emotional learning programs, right? These are special classes that students will go to either as an extracurricular or one of their special times, whatever it's called according to that school district. But so like a PE class or a music class, art class, well, they have some, and it's labeled differently, some for social emotional learning. And what we find is that school districts that have these types of classes for children, they have greater success rates for both school and work. All right, so this goes beyond just what they can achieve academically. When they get older and get into the workforce, they're going to be more successful because they've developed those key skills that help them learn how to be basically a good human being. Right? Now, the problem that we're going to find with this a lot of times is that it can be very difficult, particularly with young children. All right, so I want to share a quote with you that I've always liked. It says, "Children today are tyrants. They contradict their parents, gobble their food, and tyrannize their teachers." Okay, so think about that for a moment. Children today are tyrants. They contradict their parents, they gobble their food up, and they tyrannize their teachers. Like, would we agree with that statement sometimes? As we look at little children as they're growing, do we see many that might meet that criteria? Now, the interesting thing about that quote is that that is not a modern day quote. That is actually from Socrates. All right, so we're going back hundreds of years, and we're going to see that that was a problem back in his day as well. So it's something that we want to work on, we want to focus on and address and do everything we can. And so apart from just being a good example, one of the things that's going to help this as well is if we can create an atmosphere in our classrooms that are very warm, inviting, and open, where students feel comfortable making mistakes. They feel comfortable kind of trying new things as they are learning and getting to know who they are and what are the best ways to interact with other people. So I invite all of us to consider, what could you do to create such an atmosphere, right? As you think back and reflect on your own experiences, what are some teachers that you feel that you did a really good job at that? When you walked into the classroom, you felt seen, accepted. It was very warm and nurturing. What did they do? And what could you potentially do to make sure that your future classrooms are also providing that same opportunity, so that we can help our students properly develop healthy patterns of social, emotional learning and their moral development as well.